What does it really mean to have a conversation with God? Today, we're going to dive into a really rare and intimate record of a dialogue like that, all the way from the 13th century. It's a short text, but it reveals this incredibly powerful vision of the soul's union with the divine.
Seriously, think about it. What does a conversation with God actually sound like? Is it this booming voice of thunder and judgment, or is it something else entirely? It's a question mystics have been asking forever. But what if we had, like, a transcript of one of these conversations? Well, believe it or not, we kind of do.
So this text comes from the writings of Saint Gertrude the Great, who was a German Benedictine nun. And in her work, we find this single, incredibly powerful exchange. It shows this huge gap between how she saw herself and how, in her experience, God saw her.
Now, our story here doesn't start with some grand, complex theological statement. Nope. It begins with a feeling that is deeply, deeply human. It all kicks off with St. Gertrude's simple longing for a connection to the divine.
And you know what's so fascinating? Where her spiritual journey really begins, it's with this feeling of instability. It's a moment of vulnerability, right? That sense of being unsteady in the world. I think that's a feeling a lot of us can relate to. And it's from that exact place of uncertainty that she reaches out.
And right here, her core desire is just laid bare. She's not just asking for comfort or for guidance. She wants total union. And just notice the language she uses, my only good, and that incredibly intimate term, my beloved. That one word really sets the tone for everything that's about to happen.
Okay, so after expressing this really intense desire, Gertrude then frames her approach to God in a way that is, well, it's pretty striking.
And the text makes it really clear, this wasn't some quiet, formal, hands-folded prayer. It was an exclamation. It was born from the fervor of her desires. You can feel the passion here, this deep emotional energy behind her words.
And this is her astonishing self-assessment. In the exact same breath that she calls God her most loving Lord, she calls herself a vile and abject creature. I mean, wow. This is just a moment of profound humility, a declaration of her complete and total unworthiness in the face of the divine.
So how does God respond to this offering of unworthiness? I mean, given how Gertrude just described herself, you might expect a response that kind of confirms it, right? Or maybe one of distant, powerful authority. But what comes next is completely unexpected.
The reply doesn't come from a place of judgment at all, but from sweetest mercy. God actually mirrors her greeting, I salute you also, and then completely reframes her entire identity. She is not a vile creature. She is my beloved spouse. It's just this incredibly tender, intimate, and elevating response.
This whole powerful exchange, it's so much more than just a sweet story. It's really about a fundamental shift in perspective. It's about a complete redefinition of the self in the eyes of the divine. I mean, just look at the contrast. On one hand, you have Gertrude's perception of herself, which is rooted in this deep humility and the sense of her own flaws. And on the other, you have the divine view, which doesn't see her as flawed at all, but as a cherished and beloved partner. And the text really suggests that God's view is the one that's actually true.
But the text doesn't stop there. It actually goes on to explain that this kind of exchange, this kind of passionate devotion, carries a special significance that echoes even into the afterlife.
So the text reveals this really fascinating concept, a special privilege of grace. The basic idea is that words of intense, loving devotion, like Gertrude calling God my beloved, can actually secure a unique honor for the soul in heaven. It's like the words themselves hold real power.
Now that might sound a little abstract, right? So to make it more concrete, the text gives us a really powerful comparison. It links this special grace to the glory of one of the most famous disciples, St. John the Evangelist. So, what was so special about him?
St. John carried this unique title, this mark of special intimacy. So what the text is arguing here is that by using words of such deep affection, any soul, like Gertrude, can attain a similar kind of relationship and honor, a unique closeness to the divine.
All right, so let's pull this all together. What can we take away from this little story? Well, first, we see a spiritual journey that begins with a very relatable feeling of instability. Then, it shows how humility can be a doorway to a divine connection, one where our own self-view is completely reframed by love. And finally, we learn that the very words we use in our devotion can hold a special kind of power and grace.
So, we've looked at the words of this 13th century dialogue.
this conversation of profound love and transformation. But you know, the text is just a record of an experience. It's ink on a page. Which leaves us with a final question. Beyond all the words, what must it truly feel like?